Hey Mark, super quick video showing you my progress for the past 2 days. Some of this stuff I've already kind of told you on Discord, but I figure I want to sit down and show you because this is shaping up to be a really good system. And I am so hyped to hear what you have after you install all your orchestral sounds and you actually have proper time to sit down and compose. First thing, and probably the most elaborate, was a new type of actor or system, and I have this guy right here called local sound, right? So right now, the main music player, you see him right there, is really the core of the system. It handles the dynamic soundtrack, right? It goes to the levels, it cycles to the phrases, etc. But there's other systems, right? So we have the ambient zone, which you see right there. That's a separate system. You have the effects zone, and now we have a localized zone, which is just honestly the simplest one. Is just local audio. Still, it's good to have on your level, right? So this is very simple. You can see here, we just define a radius, and this guy's going to be quiet, and only when a player goes into it, it'll activate. And all you do here is you specify a list of sound clips, and these can be either wave files or what's the other one? Sound cues. So either one, so the sound cues can have their own settings into how they mix the wave file. So you can get pretty fancy there. But basically just have a list of sounds. And when the player walks in, it'll pick a random sound and it'll play it. And we have some options like a fade in and fade out. So you can choose the sound to have a 2-second fade in and fade out. You can select a random start time, which is pretty neat. And this is best for sound effects. So right here, I just have actual music. So it doesn't really make sense for the music. But say you have birds chirping or waves or anything that is localized and you want it to be random every single time the player passes, you want to have a random start time. You also can choose a volume multiplier range, and this will pick a random value between this, the X and the Y, min and max. And the same thing for the pitch. Again, not useful for the music, but very useful for sound effects to make the sound a little bit different every time. You can choose some attenuation settings and some concurrency settings, and you can even influence the theme that's playing, the dynamic theme, and it's on by default. And you can actually fade the theme, and then you can select how much what would be the volume of the theme. In this case, in dBs, it'll be -10, and then how long will it take to fade to that new volume. So this is useful for things like if you have voiceovers or there's a specific cue that you really need the player to listen to, you can just kind of lower the volume of the theme while the player is in there, hears the sound, and then as soon as it leaves, the volume goes back up. So let me quickly demo this, and this is again music from the rendering demo. So a lot of this stuff is not going to make sense, like the random start time, but I'll just leave it on anyway. So let's go ahead and get started and see. So that's one thing. Again, super simple, but I think it rounds up all of the features that we want in our system. So when you're thinking about composing, after you're done with the main theme, which is obviously the more complicated parts, we may want to have some bonus stuff. Maybe there's some specific sound effects that go really well with the theme that should be localized, things like that, or maybe ambient sounds that are specifically to our location, things like that. I think would be nice. Like say discovering a brand new room in a game, maybe there's like a nice little stinger that plays when you go into that area. This would be how you would do it. I also sourced some new sound effects. So all the stuff that I grabbed from freesound.org, it's not CCO, so we can't really use it per se. So I basically went through a lot of the demos from Epic and got some ambient sounds, which honestly I think sound even better. And of course, I know for a fact that we can use it. So instead of having seagulls and crickets, now we have birds and bees and cicadas. And you have a really nice audio system, so I want you to listen how much better it sounds when you actually have proper sounds going around and surround. Check it out. The next feature is the volume menu that I talked to you about. So if you press P now, you have a nice little menu, and I've separated all the different sounds in categories. So I can go ahead and lower the music volume here. And you can see it automatically lowers all of the sound effects that are all of the sound clips that are categorized as music. And I can bring it back up at any time. And this is a global, by the way, volume control. So this will go on top of whatever settings you have for your theme, which is important. And it will also be effective on the old sound system and the new sound system, because we're using sound classes, which is really interesting. And by using this method, setting this menu is actually fairly simple, and it affects all of the sound that's classified as music in the entire project. Same thing for ambience, effects, and voice. So right now I only have ambience and music selected, so that's the only thing we can test. But eventually, when you create your sound effects, we'll make sure that those are categorized as effects. And if we ever have any voiceovers, we can do that, and then we can test all of the different parameters here. So let me go ahead and go into the ambient place so you can see how we can affect the ambient sound as well. Here you go. Again, really simple to do, but a very nice bonus, I think, because it gives it that completeness, right? So I want people to buy this and be like, okay, I'm pretty much have the best system to have in my game, so I can handle all kinds of possibilities with the sound, right? Um, all right, so the next one is the theme visualization, which I already showed you. But this is again me thinking like, how can I make your job a little bit easier? Because right now, when you create a theme, because of the way all of the structs are nested and all the clips, it can be a little hard to kind of visualize. Did you put the clip in the right place, right? So that was kind of my way of thinking was. You're gonna have a lot of different clips, a lot of different phrases in different levels for every mood. How are you gonna make sure that things are correct? So I just created a little blue utility here. You can see you just need to drag your theme class into your level. And if I go to the output log, I'm just gonna clear it. There's gonna be a new button called Visualize Theme, and you just press this button, and you can see that it'll just spit out in text form the names of the clips categorized by phrase. We just talked about phrase. That was like a 1 minute change instead of motif. And then it'll do it per level and per mood. So all you would have to do then, you can just copy paste this, or you can see it here, and you can tell, okay, this clip should not be in phrase 0, level 0, casual, and this will basically spit out the structure. So again, really handy for you to figure out if the clips are in the right place if you're debugging. So just one more thing, also interesting when we are doing tutorials or we're adding things to the themes. I'm thinking like expansion packs. When I'm filming a tutorial, this is going to be useful for me to kind of confirm that things are in the right place. And actually, with that in mind, funny enough, I actually added just something else, which I think is going to make you smile, because this is again me thinking, how are you going to test that things are working correctly? And eventually I'm going to send you a demo of the project when I have things set up, so you can, when you're composing your new stuff, you can actually test if things sound good. But right now, how would you test that? I guess you'll have to lay out in the test level a bunch of triggers with different levels, and you'll have to walk around with the player to try to figure out if things sound correctly when you go up and down in levels, if you change the moods, etc. So I worked on something, and I'm calling it a music player basically. And if you click here on the music manager, there's a new section under setup general on debug options. If you expand that, we can debug the adaptive music, bar count, beat count, and now we have a new option, show music player. And if I click here, you'll see what happens. Notice that I also showed you that now we have the ability to add more than one level to be active at a time. So before I had a limit where you had to specify which level for that mood was active. Now you can add as many active levels as you want. So basically, if you want to simulate your DAW in the levels as being one of the main one track per instrument, you could technically do that, though I think it's going to get really complicated. But regardless, it gives you a lot more flexibility, because now for your composition, you can say, you know what, I want level 1 and 3 active for the specific zone, and you can absolutely do that. So now, when you go into the music trigger, and I go into my my options here, if my action is change level, I can now add the levels is now an array. So instead of having just one single one, I can add as many active levels as we want, and those levels are going to be unmuted and everything else is going to be muted. Basically, again, we're playing the master track and we're deciding how many levels are going to be audible and how many are going to be muted. So this was fairly simple to add because I was already playing all the tracks, but I think it makes a huge difference and it gives you a lot more flexibility. So I'm giving you all these options because I want you to think about all the possibilities and you know, do the best job that you can, and take advantage of whatever system makes sense for you. And the last thing I want to show you, and this is again super early, right? This is going to be the last part of the system, which is the actual music controller component, right? So far we have triggers, right? And these are static in the level, which are nice, right? If you're going into a room, you want to change the level or the mood or whatever, great. But the beauty of this is going to be when we actually script the action. And the way I'm thinking is we're going to have a component that is going to be on the player character, and you can actually script all of the different actions that we see here individually and map it to certain things, right? This is really going to be when you're really going to see the benefit here. So I have to think about how I want to do that. I'm thinking of including a set of sample, I'm going to call it functions, that are going to be pre-built. But obviously we have to think about like what are the best use cases, because I have to actually code a certain number of things that we wanted to do. But as a prototype, what I did is I put this pain causing volume here. You can see here, this is like a standard volume. It'll basically apply damage like a dot, and it'll do 10 damage every second, and it'll cause pain. And what I've done is now when I hit play, oops, let's just get rid of the player here real quick. When I hit play and the player goes over and receives damage, a stinger will play, and the player's health would decrease. So again, super silly example, but the whole point is that now we have code that's tied to the music player, right? So as you can hear, you can see the health decreasing. If I just stick here, and eventually the player dies and the level restarts. So again, super simple, but what are the use cases that we want to tie to gameplay, right? Maybe when the health is low, we can change to a different level in the music, or we can apply a sound effect, like a muffled sound effect or something, or like a strobing effect. I'm sure you can think of many different ways there. But yeah, so we first need to nail down all of the effects that you can make, and we can have like a nice standard stack, and then we can think about how can we script some gameplay elements so we can really show what you can do as the players going around. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Uh, I'm not sure how much time I'll have this weekend. Actually, I'm actually a little busy this weekend, which is kind of perfect because it gives you time to catch up and work on your composition. And yeah, so hopefully you get hyped. I'm really excited. I'm pretty much just working on this. I should probably be working on the city generator as well, because 423 is coming up like literally within a matter of days is my guess. But every single time I sit down and I fire up Unreal, I'm just like adding things to this and trying to make it as good as possible, because I think this has huge potential, and it's gonna be really impressive when we actually demo the system. So yeah, good luck this weekend. I'm super hyped to hear what you got, and yeah, let me know if you think of anything else as you're watching these videos, and we'll talk soon. All right, bye.